Good morning and welcome to our online event on energy transition and digital revolution. It is my pleasure to moderate this event that is organized jointly by the European Internet Forum and the European Energy Forum. And it's my pleasure to welcome members of both associations in our audience. Both associations have a long-standing cooperation, and I will now briefly pass the floor to Maria Rosa, who will say a few words on this collaboration.
Good morning, everyone, and many thanks, Pascale. We are indeed delighted of our continued collaboration between our two fora, which has started 4 years ago and has become a tradition now, I can say. It has always made a lot of sense, if you think about it, to find synergies in areas of mutual interest for our forum. And all the more so now, when it is clearer than ever that the convergence of energy policy and digital policy is crucial for achieving objectives of the European Green Deal. Thank you very much, Pascale, for moderating this first part of our event today, and I'll join you all later to moderate our exchange of views with participants.
Thank you, Maria Rosa. Our two sectors are indeed key in the transformation of the society, and we have experts with us today who will discuss the complementarity of energy and digital sectors. We have also with us today two members of the Parliament who have been highly involved in both fora for many years. Pilar del Castillo is chair of the European Internet Forum, and she's also vice president at the European Energy Forum. And Miapetra Kumpula-Natri is steering committee member at the European Internet Forum and also vice president at the European Energy Forum. A warm welcome to both of you. Before giving the floor to our MEPs and start the event, let me introduce our speakers for today. Mark van Stiphout from DG Energy. He is Deputy Head of Unit. Welcome, Mark. Deputy Head of Unit for Innovation, Clean Technologies and Competitiveness. Stefan Kapferer is member of the Elia Group Management Board and is CEO of 50 Hertz. Elia is associate member of the European Energy Forum, and it is the Belgian TSO. So a little bit of background. It's the transmission system operator that develops, builds, and maintains the high voltage transmission grid for electricity. Dorothée is head of sustainable business at Vodafone. Vodafone is a business member of the European Internet Forum and a leading telecommunications company. And Annika Hedberg is head of Sustainable Prosperity for Europe program at the European Policy Center. Annika will explore the links between our two sectors in view of a transition to a sustainable and competitive European economy. Welcome to all our speakers today. We indeed have a very interesting panel, and I have to make one more remark before we start our event. The speeches will be recorded and will be available after the event. The Q&A session that will be moderated later by Maria Rosa will not be recorded and held under Chatham House. So now let me pass the floor to Pilar del Castillo for some introductory remarks. Pilar, the floor is yours. You are on mute, I'm sorry. Yeah, yes.
Well, okay, now. Thank you very much, Pascale. Good morning, everyone. Dear EIF and EEF members, thank you for joining us this morning for a discussion on the role that the digitalization can play on our energy transition towards a zero emissions horizon. There is no doubt that digital technologies permeate all sectors of the economy, and the energy sector is for sure not an exception. Indeed, if we look at the primary energy production, digital technologies have shown to be crucial in renewable energy developments. Digitalization, together with engineering technologies, has made it possible to collect the energy and to convert it in a more usable form. If we look at transport through the grids, the potential volume of efficiency gains is enormous. We must not forget that transport and distribution losses between 6% and 8% are today considered normal. Now, if we move to energy consumption in households, transport, and manufacturing, technological developments such as smart meters, efficient lighting, cloud computing, and distributed software have the potential to transform energy use patterns and promoting reasonable usage. While it is true that the digital industry, on the other hand, has to reduce its own carbon footprint, it is undeniable that thanks to digital technologies, not only will we be able to decarbonize the European economy, in addition, we will do so benefiting consumers by giving them a central role in this transition. Indeed, the future energy system should lead to huge energy savings and enable consumers to access a wide range of competitive energy services. And due to all these issues, the energy sector has to face the benefits and the challenges of the digital world, such as the generation of massive amounts of data that raise important questions in terms of access rights, data privacy, and cybersecurity. Likewise, it's also worth noting that there is a need for standardization that can guarantee interoperability of services and applications. In other words, the digital dimension of the single smart energy markets. Dear friends, digital and energy is a powerful and winning alliance. Without digital technologies, the path to a zero carbon energy future would not be possible. Well, I want to now thank you very much for your attention. Again, thank you all for joining us, and my special thanks to both teams and their leaders, Pascale and Maria Rosa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pilar, for these words. Miapetra will now complement those remarks.
Thank you. Energy transition and digital revolutions are the real engines that can drive us towards the zero carbon. Society is not asking just to decarbonize the European economy, but also that the consumers benefit and play a central role in the transition. I see the future energy system has to enable a massive take-up of renewables, should lead to the huge energy savings and enable consumers to access a wide range of competitive energy services, to keep comfort at home or at the office, to optimize energy bills and generate sufficient returns of investments. I'm, as a rapporteur for the data strategy, noted that in my draft that ability to process and better use data has a significant potential for reducing emissions of greenhouse gases throughout all sectors. Handling better the data also means more knowledge and more clever decisions and automated decisions, AI, and so. So I call this as a handprint. However, the exponential data growth and data processing needs to be developed in a way that it not substantially increase the ICT carbon footprint if we would go the business as usual. And this is very concrete and important challenge that needs to be tackled on this ICT sector. I'm looking forward to get input also from this discussion, and I must tell you there were many amendments from the other MEPs also to tackle this question. I argue we need to take measures to ensure transparency of the CO2 emissions on the data storage and sharing, minimal wages, and promote green data storing techniques. New technological solutions such as fiber compared to copper and energy efficient programming produces much smaller carbon footprint. And I suppose initiatives that looks into the synergy between the district heating and cooling and the data center sectors within the recovery and use the waste heat generated when cooling data center facilities. So there are many issues we can tackle with the legislation and the initiatives. Without digital technologies, a path to zero carbon energy future would not be possible. The focus of this event will be primarily on the enabling role of the digitalization in the energy sector. The convergence of energy and digital policies are a crucial part of achieving the objectives of our common European Green Deal. I'm looking forward for good discussions.
Thank you, Miapetra, for these remarks. As always in our events, the European Commission has delegated a representative to make a short statement. Thank you very much, Mark, for being with us today. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Pauline, and thanks also to all the other panelists and the MEPs for their insights. Let me give a short perspective from the Commission, and then, of course, from where I am, which is the Innovation and Competitiveness and New Technologies Unit of DG Energy. And it is clear that also for us, digital and the link between digital and energy, the link between the digital transformation and the Green Deal is of key importance. It will really transform the energy market. It is already transforming the energy market to some extent, but I think there are still many things that can happen. And this is also, from our point of view, a necessary and a good thing, because digital technologies will help us to run the energy system more efficiently and integrate more renewables. So when we talk digital with the colleagues, we usually split it up in, or we address it from 4 angles, which is, not the final truth and definitely not a complete list, but just to give you an insight into how we look at it and how we discuss it. And that is, first of all, with the increased digital technologies, we absolutely need to make sure that the grid stays secure. So the cybersecurity dimension of it, the privacy dimension of it needs to be absolutely safeguarded. And colleagues have been working very closely between DG Energy and Connect to make sure that all the latest cybersecurity knowledge also applied in the energy system, because with increased digitalization, it gets more and more vulnerable. And there is a network code on cybersecurity in the making. We are looking also at the Commission as a whole, together with all the colleagues, at critical infrastructure. And so, cybersecurity, making the grid secure, the energy system secure, is basically a sine qua non if we want to do anything about digitalization. The second issue that we very often look at, where these 2 sectors come together, is the energy consumption of the IT sector. So we all know that the IT sector is increasingly consuming a lot of energy, and we want to make sure that this is done in the most efficient way. But we also want to make sure that the IT sector is a driver for investments in renewables. And we see some very nice initiatives in this area, some very innovative ways also how to deal with, let's say, the cooling requirements of big data centers, for example. But we want to make sure that we, as a whole, also use the increasing consumption of electricity of the IT sector to drive investments in renewables. The third thing is the uptake of the digital technologies in the energy system. So using big data, using the newest cyber technologies, using 5G, all these kind of things. How can we, in the energy sector, make best use of those technologies that become available, is something that we're also driving and pushing through many innovative projects, and I'll come back to that in a sec. And then the fourth thing, which I think is the most important thing, where it's really the transformative power of the digital technologies and digitalization in the energy sector, is the move away from products to services. And like we've seen it in other sectors, we think that is something that can still also happen in the energy sector, where you go away from buying megawatt hours as a consumer, and you buy basically, so to say, bandwidth in terms of production or consumption, and you use much more of the flexibility that is at the end consumer side in terms of his consumption to help integrating renewables. We think this is the big thing that can help in storing electricity, in managing the energy system, in increasing the load of the grid, so that we can increase the capacity of renewables in the most efficient way possible. And there is no doubt that we will need to invest in more hardware and more copper, more cables, if we have an increased electrification. But to make that as efficient as possible, we also need to increase the use of the wires and the system and reduce the peaks, have a more equal use, so to say, and for that we need digitalization. But that last thing, how do we turn that into, how do we turn the market into a more service-oriented market, a data-driven energy services market, as we like to call it? There are a few big challenges related to the business models and also related to the way the energy system works. And we recently published a competitiveness progress report as part of the State of the Energy Union, where we looked at the competitiveness of the clean energy technology sector, and we also looked at the digital services. And we see that there are a lot of companies and services emerging in grid services, in building energy management systems, in aggregating services, all still quite separate. But Europe in general is doing very good in this market, and home energy management systems and building energy management systems. Also in the aggregator side, we're doing very well, although sometimes you see that the software development, Europe is not really leading, but then turning it into services for households in the European market, we're actually doing very well. So we see all kind of new business models emerging, and we also think that these different types of businesses will gradually come together, all becoming some business towards network operators or suppliers in terms of providing a flexibility service. And this, I think, is very important because it will be an alternative to expensive investments in batteries or in storage or these kind of things. Again, not meaning that we don't need batteries. We will need them anyway. But if we can benefit from the flexibility that is in the way people consume electricity and use the demand response and these kind of things as much as possible, we can reduce the investments we need in the more expensive other types of technologies. But that means that we need to make this digital services market very easy to access, very easy to operate, very easy to function. And there are some things that we need to look at, like double grid tariffs, double taxation if you store electricity, and these kind of things really need to be addressed, and it's something that we're looking at very closely. How we're trying to push this digitalization of energy is through, on the one hand, through a lot of projects and innovation through Horizon 2020. We've been investing a lot in projects where we bring TSOs, DSOs, suppliers, consumers together to look at this new way of organizing flexibility. We've been investing in projects where we bring together big data, energy and energy companies to look at the application of big data or IoT or cybersecurity in the energy system. So really bringing together the different sides in one project to see how can we actually apply this and make it tailor-made to the energy system. And what we've been doing recently with all these different projects is bring them together in bigger projects where we where we basically ask the network operators together with suppliers to develop as much as possible one type of interoperability data exchange infrastructure that everybody could in principle make use of, because we think that it's going to be very easy to use and easy to access this type of market if there is a common data infrastructure. If every network operator needs to set up its own software system, if every supplier needs to look at every market where it is and invest in a different software system because it wants to be participating in the flexibility market, then it's going to take a long time to make this market work, and it's also going to be very expensive. And then all the alternatives like batteries and things like that will become cheaper. So we really have an interest in making this digital infrastructure as easily accessible as possible. So we're putting projects together, asking them to cooperate to see how they can jointly, with all the parties that are in these projects, come up with a digital infrastructure, how that is managed, how those different software systems in different companies can be matched and connected. And in Horizon Europe, we're now discussing the next work program. We're also looking at ways to support a kind of structure where the different projects actually make sure that what they have investigated and discovered becomes as widely as available to everybody, and that there is a kind of shared governance between the different companies to really look how such an interoperable system of the future should work. And we hope that will contribute to the other work that we're doing at the moment, which is looking at a network code on flexibility and a delegated act on interoperability, all helping this digitalization of the energy sector. So we think that with the projects that we're doing, different parties together, we can create a common understanding, test some of the solutions, so that we can then also lay them down in network codes or delegated acts. And this is all going to be also part of the digitalization of energy action plan that we're working on, and that is foreseen for next year, where basically we want to show how all these different elements of network codes, projects, etc., are connected together to make, so to say, an investment program or a transformation program of the energy system, leading towards more digitalization. So I would say happy to engage in the discussion now, and seeing this also as a start of the work from our point of view in the coming year to discuss this further, what we actually need to focus on in this digitalization of energy action plan. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark. Let me turn now to Stefan Kapferer, our next speaker.
Yeah, thank you, Pascale, for having me today as a representative of a TSO, a transmission system operator, which is active in 2 European member states, Belgium and Germany. I would like to focus on 2 aspects of the title of our event today: zero carbon and consumer driven. And I would like to pick up some of the aspects we have heard by the members of the European Parliament, as well as Mark. And first of all, we all know with the very ambitious target of the European Union to become the first climate neutral continent in 2050, decentralization as well as digitization will play a key role to tackle this challenge in the future. Decentralization is easily to explain. We all know that we had a situation in the past that a few hundred fossil power plants were the security of supply in our energy systems. And this is changing since 2 decades now. Millions of renewable energy generation capacities are established, are constructed in our member states of the European Union, and the process will go on. It's obvious. And of course, also the electrification process will go on. We all know that not only on the production side we see a decentralization, we see it also on the demand side. It's no longer only some middle-sized industrial companies, some private households using it for the existing capacity. It is also now in the transport sector with e-mobility, it is in the heating sector with heat pumps, and also more and more energy intensive industrial processes will be electrified, mainly direct electrification, sometimes electrified by using power to gas or power to heat technologies based on renewable energy. So the role of the consumer is changing twice. It is changing, first of all, because he's now a prosumer, that's very clear. He's producing with solar capacities or with investments in onshore wind technology. He is producing its own energy for his security supply and also for the system as well. But he's much more as only a producer. He is also an integrated part of the value chain. First of all, he is a resource of flexibility. With e-mobility, with heat pumps, with storage capacities in private households, also with industrial companies, with data warehouses in the future, We have a lot of flexibility in the system, and we will need this flexibility because we all know the volatile system of renewable energy will need flexibility. And the third aspect of the consumer-driven world in the future is, and it was mentioned by Miapetra earlier today, is the role that we want that consumers have the opportunity to harvest the benefits of the new system, optimizing the energy bill, aggregating and pooling flexibility from solar panels, home batteries, electric vehicles, and heat pumps. That's the future of a consumer-driven system. Does it mean that a grid infrastructure, a cross-border grid infrastructure is no longer needed? Will it all be organized in a decentralized system with digital technologies? Of course not. We all know that the demand side for electricity in the European Union is so large that we will need a lot of offshore wind capacities from the North Sea and the Baltic Sea and the Mediterranean Sea as well. We all know that cross-border interconnection will guarantee also in the future that we can organize security of supply and that a single market for energy in the European Union will be needed. And that's the reason this combination of interconnectors, of offshore wind farms, of maybe mesh grids in the future in the North Sea or in the Baltic Sea, and the decentralized world I was talking about a little bit earlier is an extremely complex situation which can only be managed by using digital technologies. And only a few examples for that. For example, balancing will be based in the future by fully exploiting any kind of flexibility in the system. And these are often very small aspects of flexibility, very small households. Another aspect, blockchain technology for green tracking. We will see more and more industrial companies who are interested not only by a PPA, interested by maybe a certificate that this is green electricity produced in a special area, that these green tracking aspect will become more relevant, and blockchain technology will help us to do so. And third and last aspect, artificial intelligence will be needed for the control centers in the TSO system, that we can make better decisions, that we can decide faster as it was in the past. And last aspect, of course, we need to offer platforms for consumers. When I talked about prosumers, it is obvious that these very small group of people need an opportunity to interconnect, to cooperate. And there we need a kind of platform economy in the future, also in the energy world. Elia Belgium is offering something like that together with Belgium TSOs in an Internet of Energy world. That's only one example. We have seen many more examples like smart charging infrastructure for the transport sector, which will be needed to reduce the peak load in the late afternoon. So digitalization is key to handle the system in the future. Last message. We shouldn't underestimate in the energy system of tomorrow the power of the consumer world, but we should also not overestimate the opportunities which can be based only on a decentralized system. Zero carbon will only be possible if we combine the decentralized consumer-driven system with a very strong infrastructure for the single European energy market in the European Union. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. Let me turn now to Dorothée for your intervention.
Thank you very much, Pascale, and good morning, everyone from London. It's really great to be here, and thank you very much for the excellent framing of the discussion, and I'll focus on a couple of examples to bring it to life. So to deliver the decade of action that we're now in and to win the race to zero, we really need to unleash the power of connected devices, combined with the power of machine learning and AI to actually turn those connected devices into connected intelligence and making systems smart. And the potential, obviously, in the energy sector, as we've been discussing, is huge, both on the demand side, on the supply side, and also where it all comes together. And Stefan mentioned the prosumers. So that is a really kind of integrated part. So at Vodafone, we are committed to building a digital society that leaves no one behind and that helps to decarbonize society and build back better. We estimate that over a third of the 100 million IoT connections that we operate directly enable our customers to reduce their emissions. And we expect this proportion to increase over time. And just think about scale for a moment. By 2025, Internet of Things connections are expected to reach 25 billion from only 9 billion in 2018. So that's huge exponential growth. And that's also why we have set a very ambitious target of enabling the reduction of 350 million tons of CO2 emissions between now and 2030, mainly through our Internet of Things offer. And to make that big number a bit more tangible, that is the equivalent of the annual greenhouse gas emissions of a country like Italy. So that is a huge target that we have set ourselves in terms of the enablement that we want to do. So just to bring it all to life with a few examples, smart meters. So for domestic smart meters, the average electricity and gas usage reduction is assumed to be 3% and 2% respectively. So it's not a huge amount, but still can help reduce the energy bills. But for commercial purposes, smart metering, the potential to increase efficiency is close to 17%. And so through the more than 12 million smart meter connections that we have that use our IoT technology, we are saving an estimated 1.6 million tons of CO2 per year. So for example, in Spain, Iberdrola have 75,000 Vodafone SIMs for connectivity that they are using to process the meter data from 10.5 million residential smart meters. Another example is Techem, an energy service provider for real estate and for private homeowners. They're using the narrowband IoT from Vodafone to track energy consumption and also help consumers improve their energy efficiency. But think cities too, and these are actually some of my favorite examples. So in Guadalajara in Spain, 13,500 LED lights were connected to a central management system, and the energy consumption from street lighting was reduced by 68%. That is really a sizable number. To move to smart grids, and a couple of examples there. So obviously, as Stefan mentioned, a growing number of decentralized new generation low carbon assets that need to be integrated securely, regardless of their location. And just before the summer, we partner with the blockchain consortium Energy Web Foundation to optimize the integration of renewables and distributed energy resources into the grid through IoT and blockchain technologies. So it's really about recognizing and validating the wind turbines, the batteries, the heat pumps, the solar panels, and then also connecting them securely and efficiently with the grid networks, which obviously is essential to keep the grid stable and also to decarbonize. But let me move to an example from inside Vodafone and then also get a bit into our own footprint, because as it has been mentioned a few times, we also need to reduce our own footprint. So inside Vodafone, we use dynamic thermal management systems to control the cooling in our technology centers. And the concept is that we have temperature sensors between the racks of servers and then control the air distribution to avoid temperature spikes in the room. And so the system varies the airflows and uses machine learning algorithms to find the optimal settings and adjust to load charges in the servers, which would otherwise create hotspots in the room. Another example is that we're also developing with partners more dynamic ways of powering down radio equipment through AI and machine learning. So for now, usually the low power mode is typically done with a time schedule or with other kind of fixed parameters. But so if you move to a more kind of dynamic system with AI and machine learning, there's a huge potential to improve this. And these were only two examples of what we're doing on energy efficiency. So at Vodafone, 90% of the carbon footprint from our operations, so the scope 1 and 2, comes from electricity consumption in our base stations, in our data centers, in our technology centers. And in the actions that we take in the hierarchy, energy efficiency is really at the very top. So we've been laser focused on that, because in the end, the best megawatt hour is the one that isn't consumed, obviously. And so just to bring that to life with a couple of numbers, over the last 5 years, we've managed to keep energy consumption almost flat whilst delivering a more than 1,000% increase in data traffic. So in other words, we reduced the energy consumption per unit of data traffic by 90%. And that is really going to continue to be the focus. If you think that energy consumption is about 10% of our OPEX, we have a business case and also a planet case to really drive efficiency. We've also committed at Vodafone to reaching 100% of renewable electricity across our European markets by July 2021 and across our global footprint by 2025. And obviously, given that we have a huge presence also in the African continent, there are some additional challenges there. So it takes a little bit longer there, but there's a laser focus on that as well. And watch this space, we'll be setting a science-based target aligned to a 1.5 degree world and based on an industry sector, so an ICT industry sector specific pathway that had been developed by GSMA very soon. So we're really kind of addressing our footprint. And I think the positive message here is also that because our footprint is mainly electricity, it is addressable. We can really do something about it. And that's why, you know, a lot of our attention, whilst we are working on eliminating our footprint, is really going towards how we can enable decarbonization and how digitalization can unlock decarbonization and a more efficient use of resources across industries. And obviously, to achieve it, we really need to together truly unleash the twin digital and green transitions. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothée. Thank you very much. And now to Annika, who has the privilege of closing the round of initial interventions.
Thank you so much. The EPC European Policy Centre, we've worked extensively over the last years on looking at how better management of data and digital solutions could contribute to achieving the green transition. And I'll be happy to take a step back to the bigger picture. For way too long on a policy level, the green transition and digital transformation, they've been promoted separately, even though we now start to recognize that their alignment would actually bring enormous benefits. And as we now see a lot of focus being given to the twin green and digital transition, not least as the elements in the EU's recovery, it would be great if this recognition could give new push for aligning the transitions in both policy as well as in practice. What we see is that better management of data and deployment of digital solutions can provide the means to enable and even accelerate the transition to a more sustainable economy. They can help contribute to system change in our food, mobility systems, as well as in our energy systems. And I would say that there are three considerations to be kept in mind. Obviously, all starts with the data. This means asking the right questions, collecting the relevant data, and managing and analyzing it so that it becomes information and ultimately knowledge, which again can be then used to support decisions, including our policy and investment decisions. Second, obviously, are the digital solutions themselves. And we've already heard numerous examples given this morning about what digital solutions can do. And we're seeing increasingly that tools like AI, sensors, IoT, blockchain applications are being used to support many novel sustainable business models. And they offer great possibilities to green our economy even further. They can help us to consume fewer materials, less energy, reduce emissions, minimize waste, help us to be smarter with the resources we have. And while digital solutions help to connect governments, people, companies, and things, they also enable the sharing of valuable information and co-creation of needed solutions. As a third consideration, which has not been touched upon here today, is that digitalization also offers ways to enhance governance, including the monitoring, implementation, and enforcement of relevant rules that are needed for the green transition. When it comes to then aligning the digital revolution with the energy transformation, digitalization offers many possibilities for enabling the functioning of smart grids and demand response, and as such, empowering consumers to play a more active role, especially with improving energy efficiency. We've heard references being made to this a number of times this morning. Also, what has been mentioned is blockchain, which is an interesting new player on the ground, as it's seen as a tool that could really help producers and consumers contribute to the clean energy transition, including development and uptake of renewables. We're seeing already several companies deploying blockchain and helping empower consumers to play a role in the clean energy transition. Blockchain can be used to monitor energy prices, certify the origins of energy, so that it really does come from renewable resources. It can help enable decentralized trade between users in the grid, for example, between the local renewable energy producers and customers, and smart blockchain-based contracts and also cryptocurrencies are being used to invest in renewable energy installations. I have solar panels on our roof, and although we use them to charge our car, power our heat pump system that heats our home, and even though I run the washing machine and dishwasher during the day to make use of the electricity produced, even under the Brussels grey sky, we keep on producing more electricity than we use during the day. There's enormous untapped potential to support and benefit from consumer-driven power generation. And if we can use digital solutions, be it blockchain or other solutions, to enable community members and residents to be part of this clean energy transition and make efficient use of personal photovoltaic installations, for example, if we are helping people to buy and trade clean energy, this could surely make a valuable contribution to the clean energy transition. However, this said, and also something that has been mentioned several times this morning, for digital solutions to really play a meaningful part in the green energy transition, this obviously requires also greening the ICT sector itself. We know the ICT industry has a significant climate and environmental footprint due to its energy and resource consumption, greenhouse gas emissions, as well as e-waste that need to be addressed. And for example, I talked about blockchain, and while it can provide interesting possibilities, the current generation of blockchain requires significant amounts of energy, which will need to be addressed for it to become a viable future option. So going forward, it's key to ensure that also the digital revolution itself becomes energy efficient and is powered with clean energy. To conclude, I just want to say that we do not want digital revolution, new gadgets, and digitally run operations for the sake of it. Digital solutions and data, they are instruments. We can decide for which purposes they are used. And just imagine if we steered the power of data and digital solutions to solve the greatest, most challenging problems we face today in our societies, in our economies. Just imagine if digitalization was turned into a real enabler for the clean energy transition. And what if Europe aimed to become the best in the world in harnessing the possibilities with digitalization in energy transition? The possibilities are limitless. The potential is there, but for digitalization to really deliver, it needs to be steered in the right direction. And for this, we need to look at our policy framework, our financing instruments, and make sure that they contribute to greening the digital transition and the ICT sector, as well as accelerating the purpose-driven digitalization. It should be in our interest to benefit from data and digital solutions as we hope to address the barriers to the ongoing energy transition and empower people to play a role. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this last intervention, and also for sharing with us your personal anecdote and for being so positive about a bright future. Thank you also to our panel for your great presentations, and I hope those have triggered a lot of questions from our audience. Indeed, as Pilar said in the beginning, energy and digital, it's a powerful and winning alliance, and there are much things to discuss now in our Q&A session. We will move to the Q&A session that will be moderated by Maria Rosa, and where you, the audience, will have the opportunity to take the floor and to interact with the speaker. But for that, we will have to ask you to navigate a little bit on your screen. You will see on the left of your screen a Q&A tab. You should click on this Q&A tab and then on the box to access the session, where Maria Rosa is already waiting for you. It was a pleasure for me to moderate this session. I thank you all for your attention, and I wish you a very good day and very good debate. Thank you.